everyone. Welcome to the Chamber Connection podcast. Today, Steve and I are excited to dive into what we wished we knew when we started at our chambers and the value of non-dues revenue, particularly through travel programs. We're privileged to hear from two incredible leaders, Kristi Meek, the dynamic president and executive director of the Assiniboia Chamber of Commerce, and Debbi Nicholson, recently retired chamber royalty after over 45 years with the Greater Sudbury Chamber of Commerce. Come with us and dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Chamber Connection. It's Melanie here from the Halton Hills Chamber of Commerce, and I am with my podcast host, Steve Chikota from the Parkland. I almost said it wrong, Steve, because we were just talking about how many parklands there are. The Parkland Chamber of Commerce in Manitoba, and we have two great guests with us today. We're so excited. I think I almost forgot to press record because we were chit-chatting so much. So I want to say hello to Kristi Meek, who's president and executive director of the Assiniboia Chamber of Commerce in Manitoba. She's been there 6 years. She's also the secretary and treasurer for the CCEC and a member of the Inclusive Growth Committee at the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. And her leadership has been pivotal, I know, in her community for fostering growth and advocating for business and supporting economic development. And then we have a chamber rock star with us today. We are so happy to be able to welcome Debbi Nicholson, who's got over 45 years of leadership experience at the helm of the Greater Sudbury Chamber of Commerce. We're sad to say she's retiring this year. I don't think she's all that sad about it, but we managed to get her to join us for one last nugget of wisdom that she can share with all of us. And, you know, Debbi, you've really led the way as president and CEO, and I know that you've contributed decades of leadership, not only to your community, but to the chamber community. So I want to thank you for that right off the bat and say welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So why don't we start a little bit? I know that we could probably talk to each of you a billion things about things that you're great at and things that you'd like to let other people know that they could count on. But you both really have very successful travel programs, and that really stood out to Steve and I when we were looking at who we wanted to invite on. And we know a lot of chambers struggle with how to make money that's not dues related. And so we thought we'd start there. So Debbi, talk to us a little bit about how your travel program came about and maybe tips and tricks you would give to anybody that's looking to bring that into their portfolio.
Yeah, thanks, Mel. So we started our travel program back in 2012, and it was not too long after travel really came to the Canadian Chamber milieu. It had been quite active in the US with their chambers, and then I think everybody perhaps is familiar with Leo Liu, who runs Sitzlake. And he was doing these phenomenal trips to China. And he would invite chamber managers to go on one of those trips absolutely free of charge to see what it was like. And then with the potential of then introducing it to your own community chamber. So I took advantage of that free opportunity and traveled with the Vaughan Chamber. They were sending a trip to China. So I went on that trip and was absolutely blown away by it and came back home and said, yeah, we absolutely have to do this. So that was in 2012, and I started marketing that trip, and within about 3 weeks, I sold it out at 60 people.
Wow.
And I contacted Leo and I said, is there any way I can increase the number of seats? And he said, yeah, we can give you another 22 seats. So our first trip, we had 82 people on the trip.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And then people kept saying, oh, I want to go, I want to go, I want to go. So shortly after that, I said, can we do a second trip? And he said, yeah, you can. And we sold that one out in 2 days with 83 people on that trip.
Debbi, what are you doing with these people on the trips? Why do they all want to go so badly?
Well, I think with China,
Yeah.
there's a lot of interest in China, right? And it's perhaps not a destination you would want to go on your own
Right.
unless you had a guide, and potentially and unless you spoke the language. So
Right.
that was a big thing for us. So anyway, over 2 years, we ended up doing 4 trips, and they were all hugely successful to China. And then I started looking at other destinations and that sort of thing. So over the last 12 years, so excluding the COVID years, because of course we weren't traveling in those years, we've probably done, I'm going to say 15 to 18 different destinations.
Wow.
And over that 10-year period, like 2012 to 2023, excluding COVID, our chamber has raised $250,000 on travel.
Good job.
And we do 2 trips a year. I try to do 2 trips a year. Last year we only did 1, and this year we will only do 1. But they're significant revenue generators for us. And no, we haven't always had 80 people. You know, some trips we've had like 5 or 6 people, and they went with another chamber, and some of those were with a local travel agent that we used. But typically we do between 20 and 30 passengers, I would say, per trip. And we've done, you know, South Africa and Italy and Ireland and Peru and Egypt. We've done some of the European countries, you know, and all of them have been very, very positive trips. Our feedback is very, very positive. One thing I will comment on, though, is if you're using one of the main travel companies like Indus, we use a lot. SitsLink, we've used a lot. You can negotiate with those tour companies to design a more specific tour for whatever your travelers are interested in.
Oh, that's a great tip.
Yeah, so some of our travelers, a lot of our travelers are seniors, so people who are retired, who have, you know, disposable income and are interested in those types of trips. They're not necessarily interested in a 10 or 12-day trip, though. They want a 3-week trip because they've got time, right?
Yeah.
So we've been able to negotiate that. We've also been able to negotiate some of the optional tours as part of the trip, so they don't have to pay extra for the optionals. And then some of them too would like to add on days either prior to the start of our trip or at the end of our trip to make it, you know, maybe a 4-week trip for them. So that we've been able to negotiate as well.
Yeah.
Typically, some of these trips, they have a portion that is revenue for the chamber, but we've been able to negotiate that revenue as well. So don't be afraid to ask. I mean, all they can say is no, right? So, but if you ask and they say yes, bonus, you know, even more beneficial to you. So those are some of the ideas that we've had and that have worked out very well for us.
Wow, that's great.
So we're all new at the travel programs ourselves. Like I've put on 1 trip, Melanie's been on 1. We're both in the work of our own. Kristi's been lucky to get away with a couple, and she's got more in the books there. For anybody that hasn't been a part of the travel programs of any kind, it sounds like a lot of work when you're putting these together, especially on the trip side of things. Like my first trip was 30 people altogether. How are you managing that group when you actually start going on that trip? How are all those people being looked after on that side of things?
Well, in terms of preparing for the trip, the tour company does a lot of the work. So they design the marketing for you, and all you have to do is get it out and try and sell as many tickets as you can. What we do, we always have an information session to start marketing the trip. So anybody interested in that destination would come out to that free marketing event. And then once we've sold the trip and we're ready to distribute the tickets and all of the information that they may need for, you know, getting on the plane, we have another meeting with all of our travelers. And we give out the tickets, we, you know, give them a bit of swag, you know, it could be a luggage tag or something like that for them. We always work with a local travel agent, so they're at that meeting as well. Make sure that they know, if you're going to a country that has different electrical, currencies, that, you have to make sure you've got your, all of that lined up. We talk to them about money currency and where they can exchange if they're bringing cash with them. So it is a lot of information up front. We give everyone name tags, and we tell them from the time they, are in the airport in Toronto to get onto that flight, they have to wear their name tags so that we can visually identify who they are, especially if they're travelers that we don't know. If they're seniors, chances are they may not be a chamber member, and I may never have met them before.
Yeah.
So we ask them to wear the name tags. And, we sort of tell people they're not to wander off on their own. If we're ready to get on a bus, you have to be on the bus at, the said point at whatever time it is. Once you get home from the tour for that day, you can do whatever you want to do in your evening hours if there's nothing planned. But, you take the responsibility that you're being careful and safe, and, the name of the hotel, and you can find your way back, or those sorts of things. So sometimes it can be a little bit like herding cats, but for the most part, they are very respectful of the fact that, they're on a group tour and they have to stay with a group and that sort of thing. So
it's like kids camp for adults, right? You need a camp counselor on the bus. I certainly was camp counselor.
So with different attitudes sometimes. And I was just going to add to Debbie, what we've done, like I've done two trips and I'm going on my third. I actually leave here in 2 weeks to Ireland. But for us, we actually, in communication with the groups beforehand, once we have all of our travelers, we immediately start a private Facebook group page, and we ideas and where do people want to see what have you traveled before. So it's almost of a more get to know you. We do an event as well where we hand out the travel tags. We, beyond the social page, we also send an email when it has to deal with all travelers, because not everyone's on social all the time. So we send important things for email, because as much as we are working with Indus on the past couple trips we've been on, I find our travelers want more information a lot quicker, like further away from the trip, than what is always provided. So we've done a little research and add to that. And once we've actually gotten to the airport, or just before, we actually provide a WhatsApp, and we use WhatsApp all while we're traveling with the group. And we find that's a little easier with herding the cats, except for some individuals that don't have kind of their mobile device, open to everything. So we always ask them to find their buddy that does. And if you want to stay with the group, you got to stay with your buddy.
That's so great. So Kristi, you're newer to the travel program. How do you market it in your community? So, because that, and for anyone listening, the beauty of the Chamber Travel Program is you will typically find it's not just members coming. It's actually more people that are plugging into the discount that you're able to offer because of the group program. So how are you marketing it? How are people finding your trip?
We do social campaigns. So we buy the ad space all through social. We market it to our members. For us, we actually old school print out posters. We have it in grocery stores, as well as the 55+ centers, the community centers. We provide all that. Some of our members offer to do that as well. We do hold a information evening that's open to everyone. We do have some members attending. We do have seniors are the majority, but we just got back from Tuscany in October. Our youngest traveler was 27. And our oldest traveler was 82. So we had 32 people, it's word of mouth. But I would say, I think the reason we've proven it, successful for us, Debbi, you shooting out a number of 82, I'm like jealous of it for the non-dues revenue for the chamber that drove. But as for herding cats, I'm like, how did you even, but, you know what? Everyone's an adult. It's great. But for the marketing of it, I think we found success again, just with 3 trips so far. We have Germany planned at the end of the year. We're doing the Christmas markets in Germany. And so Jessica is going to be the chamber host for that one, my counterpart here. But we sell ourselves with it because we're a 2-person chamber. And so it's one of those, hey, who wants to come with me to Ireland? They're seeing a face.
Yeah.
They know from out in the community. So you've built that trust, that security, that comfort. I've had children of some of the older adults traveling with us call me just saying, here's my number. I love that you're going with my mom and dad. It just adds that extra comfort for family and friends back here. So we've talked about other things as well, where I make sure I make a post online for family and friends to follow our page of updates that actually sometimes show their family or friends in the pictures, because it just shows that comfort, that going, oh my gosh, they're having a great time. I don't need to worry. I don't need to do anything. So we've had, I think that's the success with the smaller chambers, putting a face to the name that we actually are going on the trip. We're not just selling this
Yeah.
to make money. We're going, we want to be, you know, your chamber host, but truth is we're there for our own pleasure as well. There's not a lot of work that
Well, let's not tell our boards that. We're working.
you're working towards it. There's some getting together, but I don't know. We have so much fun, and just the camaraderie you build.
Yeah.
Like we have people dropping off Christmas gifts for us,
Hmm.
you know, stopping by and giving us floral arrangements. Just they're always in touch now.
It's
Yeah.
a different type of work, right? Like
Mhm.
if you're not being a good host, if you're not looking after your travelers, they're not going to come back. They're not going to get the repeat, and then that word of mouth kind of kills your program. So you have to make sure you play a really solid role in accommodating people. And yeah, you're there on work time. And for anybody not in the travel program, if you're thinking about it, like you need a good host, right? You need
Do.
someone who can kind of look after that group, because there is a tour guide, like the company comes with something, but you do have to make sure your group is looked after, and that's work. Like it does take some work. So it's not a vacation. So
No.
you are on location somewhere else. It does take some effort. So
You know,
yeah.
and it's different here in Ontario. So, you know, depending on where you're plugging in from, in Ontario, we have to use a travel agent. So you can't just use Indus, for example. You have to use a travel agent to get the TICO protection. So, you know, there's a little bit more complexity in that typically you're splitting or giving a portion of your referral fee to hopefully a member. So there's win-win. But you know what I did is, you know, we make sure that travel agent travels with us as well. So so we're protected, but it only helps their business. You know, we have a fabulous travel agent who, let's face it, if someone's paying $4,500 to go to Tuscany, chances are they're going somewhere else. And so now they've got a trusted reputation or relationship with our travel agent. And in Manitoba, you don't have to use travel agents, correct? So it's all you.
Yeah, it's all us. However, I am looking into that because I do want to partner with a business member or somebody local here, because I think it would only enhance the program. The other feedback that we had is because we are public marketing, I've had a few phone calls from some of the local travel agents or calling us out sometimes on social media, where it's like, whoa, stop. We're doing 1 to 2 trips a year. This is not to, you know, take away your business. And instead, I've asked for to meet with them on future trips we can organize as a group. And so we're opening those doors to those conversations and partnerships.
Oh, that's a smart idea.
Yeah, the nice thing about using a travel agent too, and it's a win-win, because they can help you in terms of, you know, if the passenger needs a visa or something like that, they can help arrange those connections for those visas. And you are paying them a fee for their services, because a lot of the registrations would go through them. Before, you know, you could just register directly with Indus or whomever company you're using. The other thing, though, is you're providing them with a list of travelers
Yeah.
that maybe are not clients of theirs. Chances are they're not.
Yeah.
And it's giving them, you know, a whole Rolodex of new names that they can then be marketing their services to. So it truly is a win-win.
Yeah,
Debbi-
I'm excited.
No,
I
go
was
ahead, Kristi, sorry.
I was just going to add to it. I mean, as much as we've just started out, like we're doing our third trip here in a couple of weeks. You know, in the 3 trips we've done, we've made over $15,000 for our small chamber. And, you know, hearing Debbie's number, it's like, oh, that's so exciting. But again, having to split that cost. I mean, as much as I've been a chamber executive for 6 years, I saw Indus. I've seen, you know, Colette was at the last Canadian Chamber Conference and all that. It's just dipping your toe in going, how do you do it? And you hear the stories. And I remember talking to Debbie and I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna do this. And that first trip, I think we made $2,500, which we had no money before from anything. So here's $2,500. Well, then the next trip we went to Tuscany, we made over 11,000 or 12,000, whatever. And I was just, wow, like it's amazing that can be done. And yes, you can negotiate those non-due revenue fees, you know, that come back. And I've learned as well, like our first trip was to Portugal and we had 8 people. We decided it was right after COVID. We did it. And I didn't know. And it was one of those, here's the package. And I just signed, yep, that's the package. Because I didn't know I could change anything. I'm not a world traveler by myself.
Well, you are now.
I am now. Yeah, it's kind of weird. It blows my mind. Like I just got back from Tuscany and now I'm on my way to Ireland. And anyways, but it's one of those things that the next trip to Tuscany, I started talking to some other chambers and they're like, Kristi, no, you just say you don't want that road trip. You want to do this. And so I started building it for what I wanted or what our travelers wanted. And we've changed so many things. I just didn't know. And you don't know what you know.
Yeah.
So reaching out to your network where it's amazing what you find out. Yeah.
The other thing too that I think we all should be mindful of is potentially surveying your travelers and finding out where they want to go, what their sweet spot in terms of the price of the trip is, the length of the trip, you know, what kind of destinations would they be interested in. So with our very, very first trip, which was the China trips, we started building a database of people that expressed interest in travel, whether they traveled with us right away or not. We kept them on a database. And every time we have a trip to market, we're obviously sending it out to that database. We're sending it out to all of our members and doing some of the things that Kristi identified, but these are the people that are really interested in traveling as much as they can, and they have the wealth in order to be able to do it. So finding out what they liked about the trip, what they didn't like about the trip, you know, is there anything we could do better to make it more, you know, enjoyable for them? One of the feedbacks that we had from an older couple who travel all the time, and our oldest traveler is 88 and his spouse is, I think, 83 or 84. So what they told us is that they would prefer an all-in pricing, because some of these you have to tip the bus driver, or you have to tip the tour guide and things like that. So they said, rather than us having to dole out, you know, a few dollars here, a few dollars there to tip these people, it would be really helpful if the chamber took care of all of that. So that's what we did. We just added that to the cost of the trip. And we said, you know what, we'll look after all the tipping. If you felt, you know, we're going to give them you know, the fair rate, what is recommended as the fair rate. But if you felt that they did over and above that, you can tip extra independently, but we're going to take care of all the tipping for you. They love that. Absolutely love that.
Great idea.
Mic drop. Great idea. I love it. That's because I did have to go collecting money from everybody
Yeah.
at the bus, and felt like a drug dealer and
Yes, yeah,
I was a little nervous there for a little bit, that's for sure.
yeah.
Debbie, I have a question for you. So we get the challenge sometimes that, the travel program, is it part of the chamber mandate? Yes, it's non-dues revenue, which we all need, but is it really the pool that the chamber should be swimming in? So have you faced that and how do you answer that?
Yeah, actually, we faced that with our very first trip. And, I was getting feedback that, this is, yeah, it's great non-dues revenue for you, but is it in the chamber's wheelhouse and should we be doing that? And before I could answer the question, and this was brought up at a board meeting, one of my directors happened to be on the trip. And he said, I did more networking on that trip and did more business deals on that trip than I would have had I stayed home for those, 10 days or however long the trip was. So
Interesting.
that sort of ended the conversation right there. And I've never been asked it again.
Fabulous. I love that.
Yeah. These people really become friends, and Kristi was mentioning what they do with their trips. What some of our passengers have done, they developed this email, list of the travelers, and they have potluck dinners every quarter and get together and reminisce about their trips. They really become friends.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, that we just had one. We did a trip to Vietnam and Cambodia last fall, and this group just got together in February for a dinner at one of the travelers' homes, and then there's another one this summer that they're doing with the travelers again. So it's really very, very good that way, and the networking is second to none, I would say.
Yeah, we have that too. We have our 82 and 83-year-old, two women. They go out and we had a group of nurses, 6 nurses. One brought their daughter. They meet for tea and coffee. I think it's every second month since they've been back, and they're all signed up for Germany now. They're all going and they're phoning each other to make sure they're all going and who's missing out. And the daughter got pregnant, so she can't come on this trip, and she didn't consult with everyone else, and
At least she didn't get pregnant on the trip. That would be a story.
No, she was rooming with her mom. But we've had that question, just in the 3 trips, and again from travel agents as well. But for us, I mean, in presenting it to my board, and then when we talk about it to our members, it was about 3-4 years ago. During the pandemic, we added a 4th pillar to our organization that we promote, saying our 4th pillar is community, because people is what makes businesses, whether they're working in them or supporting them or anything. So when we have that community pillar, we say that the funds that we earn, we're transparent about it.
Yeah.
But we have a community support fund, which is on our plan to actually make it a more formal type fund, but we have a community support fund. So when people come to our chamber office saying, hey, we have this fundraising event, can you support? Well, here's $100 gift certificate from this. I have $100 in that account because I did chamber travel. You want to participate in a golf event, we're going to sponsor a hole. We invite another member to sponsor the hole with us so that we save costs, but we also use that $200, $300 cost out of that community support fund to show that we're putting it back into the community. We're looking at scholarships for our youth, everything.
That's so great. What a great idea.
We really promote it as our community pillar. So it's business related, but yeah.
Excellent. I'm going to shift gears on us a little bit here. I love, we could talk about, we're going to have to do
notes
on this. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Take notes.
So, I'm going to pick on Deb for a second because, we've got you here and you've got so much expertise behind you, but curious to know a little bit about your role, your size of chamber, your staff, and how are you running your day-to-day sort of thing? How are you balancing everything it is to be a chamber, and whereas are you heavy in advocacy and the marketing and member relations, all this? Like, how are you packaging all of that together?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So we're a chamber of about 770-ish members at the moment. We used to have over 1,100 members at one time, but the economy changes, COVID hits, all of those sorts of things. So we've definitely had a decline, but we've passed the bottom of that dip, and we're definitely on our way back up now. So I typically would have a staff of about 8 or so. I have one employee off on a medical leave at the moment, and I have one staff off on mat leave, and I am down 2 staff people in addition to them. We've tried hiring, but it's extremely tough finding the people with the right talent right now, and we're sort of doing what we can with what we have, still interested in hiring that talent, but it's so competitive out there, and we don't want to hire for the sake of hiring. We want to hire with the right skill sets that we need for our jobs. So right now, there's me. We have a director of policy and government relations. I have a membership account manager, and I have a finance and membership sort of coordinator, bookkeeper, jack of many trades really, and many skills. So those are the 4 of us at the moment. I also outsource all of my social media to an external company to do that. So normally we would have had, a social media marketing kind of person in office, but it's cheaper for me to outsource that. And then I don't have to, I can yell at them when I'm not happy with them, and they'll scramble and make some adjustments, but I don't need to worry about whether they're going to show up for work today, or I don't need to give them vacation time and sick time and all of that stuff. And I also outsource my events, sponsorship, and organization and execution stuff.
Oh,
They don't find the speakers or the topics and that sort of thing for us, but all the execution they do, and all of the sponsorship sales they do. And that's, again, for those reasons, it's cheaper for me to do that than to have somebody on staff doing that. So that really works well.
that's
We go
great.
to the social media side of things, and maybe if we got to talk about that event planning as well, but that one seems like you have to keep that one so close to the chamber. How are they getting the information? How are they building content for you? How are you giving them anything for them to work on?
We provide them with that information. So we meet with them on like a monthly basis and send them a list of things that, upcoming events that we're doing, and that sort of thing. Any advocacy stuff that comes up, because, there's a provincial budget tomorrow and I want to get the chamber's position out on the provincial budget, we will send them that, and then they create the content. And then we have final approval on what that content is, what it's saying, what it looks like, all of that. But we give them as much information up front, and then they design it for us and send it to us, and we say, yeah, change that, add that, whatever, or, it's great as it is. And then they have a schedule that they're sending it out.
So you yourself or someone on your team is catching pictures at your events or anything recorded?
Yeah, sometimes they will come to the event because it's an event they're interested in, and they will take photos or do video, and then they'll do a post-event reel on the event itself. They always acknowledge all of our sponsors, and try and get some really good pictures in there as well. And then if not, then the staff who are in attendance at that event are just taking pictures periodically throughout the event, and then we send them to our social media company.
So would that be a tip of yours, like offload don't do as much work as possible. Is that right?
Well, I think you have to look at the cost benefit analysis of it.
Yeah.
And same thing with if you have a membership salesperson. If you have a membership salesperson and you have them on a base salary, and then you're paying them commission on top of that. So work out, what their T4 is at the end of the year, and whether there is value, whether they're bringing in more in membership revenue for you in a year than you're paying them in terms of a salary and benefits and commissions in a year.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work out, then you've got to scratch your head and say, why am I doing this?
Yeah, because you're managing the vendor relationship in a completely different way. And I love that you touched on that, Debbie, because staff relations are different, right? And they can be yes, enriching, but sometimes a little draining, as we know. We have people go on leave or being very delicate, just in case someone hears this podcast. But yeah, I mean, they take a different kind of energy from us that we don't always have. And so sometimes to negotiate with a vendor, you don't have to worry about feelings as much, as delicate as that sounds.
Well, and I've been around long enough, and I've seen it over the years, how it's worked and how it hasn't worked. And I thought, oh, gee, I need more membership dollars coming in. So I need more membership salespeople being out there to bring in those dollars. And then, 2 years later or 5 years later, you stop and you think about it and you look at the numbers. And okay, I'm paying that person X as a base salary, plus they made X in terms of commission. And yet they only brought me in $30,000 worth of membership revenue.
Yeah.
Oh, what am I doing?
Yeah.
So you can, hire somebody externally to do that for you and just pay them on a straight commission basis if you want. Or, if your chamber is known well in the community and you're doing lots of things that, help your members and grow your community and are in line with what your businesses want, a lot of those members are coming in organically anyway. So maybe you don't need, a $60,000 or $70,000 person out there working for you.
Okay. Kristi, how do you manage it? What do you do?
Well, we're a 2-person office.
So everything.
Yeah, I look at the numbers, but then I look at time and resources and everything else too. And for us, I mean, we always say we're not an expert in one thing. We know a little bit about a lot of things. And so it's relying on others to help. For us, we've actually grown almost 100 members since I've been here. And we're now, my summer project, because we all have those that sometimes turn into a winter project. But my next goal is 500 members, and that then turns us into a medium-sized chamber, and we feel the struggle is just being too full-time. When I started, I was myself with a part-time assistant that was here 3 hours a day. So I was making those memberships, come in, and great relationship with our chambers plan advisors and all of this. So we were making those connections, and I was able to, show my board the value in having another full-time employee. We had the money coming in. But it's one of those, how can we keep it up with just the two of us? And what I'm hearing Debbie, was just saying the numbers. It seems as though a lot of chambers have this magic number of one staff member for about 125 members. So right now I'm feeling that we are behind in how many staff. So it's looking at what are the responsibilities? Because right now between myself and Jessica in our office, she was hired as social communications and office manager to help. But honestly, and not to say she's a mini me, I say we're equal. She does a lot of the things that I do. We are a team together, and there is, there's differences. I do the payroll, I take care of all the financing and all of that, but other than that, we really work at as a team together, and that's the best way we can manage. So I'm looking at a growth strategy right now and what I need to look at for the future, because we are growing and doesn't make sense for our chamber.
You need
And-
more trips to pay for the staff.
Yeah.
But not to pit chambers versus each other, but there is a chamber out there with 600-ish members with 2 staff, and they seem to be nailing it, right, Melanie? So
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
Better
that was crazy. Yeah.
yeah, unbelievable.
It's a tough thing though, right? Because, for us, we use that 125 metric as well. And we don't charge enough in membership to make it make sense. So if I bring in 100 new members, and so we do not have a business development role anymore. We let it organically come through our social media and through my time in the community. We're actually tracking ahead. Oftentimes we're the best people to sell the chamber, let's face it. But if I bring 100 new members in at $265 a year, I mean, who am I paying to make? So we need to look at those non-dues revenue sources in order to make that make sense for our community.
Yeah.
Balance. Debbi, I'm going to pick on you again, and then Kristi here. Wondering, wondering what keeps you going, what's filling your cup over the years and keeping you coming back to this chamber life?
Well, for me, that's a very easy question to answer. I absolutely love what I do. I wouldn't have been here for 45 years if I didn't love what I do. And I love who I do it for. So I think if you're privileged enough to hold a CEO position in your community, I think you are in a very unique position that you are changing your community in whatever way your chamber does that, whether it's through advocacy, whether through events, whether it's through, working with your small business community and helping them through COVID and doing all of those things that we did. You have your finger on the pulse of the community, and you can really make a difference. And I think that is so rewarding, so fulfilling. I look at entrepreneurs and I think, oh my God, I'm so privileged to work with them, because these are people that, had an idea or were really, really good at something and decided to turn it into a business. And they put their heart and soul into it. They max out all of their, credit cards to start up this business. They hire 1 employee or 2 employees, or, grow their business. And I think, oh my God, how many people really put everything on the line in order to be an entrepreneur, and then to contribute to the economy of your community by hiring people, and then by giving their time to volunteer organizations, whether that's the chamber or whether it's the Cancer Society or the food bank. And then they donate their dollars to those things, whether it's the kids' hockey team or their daughter's dance recitals or whatever. And I just think entrepreneurs are absolutely amazing, amazing people. And the fact that I have an opportunity to work with them and to do good things for our community, to create an environment where entrepreneurs can thrive and the community grows, and we're getting to hire more people and attract more people to the community. What better job is there out there?
Yeah, well said. Yeah, cause driven. Very. You got to have that.
That's
the meaning and purpose. That's
Debbi, you gotta stitch that onto like a pillow or a
that's a full
t-shirt.
backpack
Like a
or
big
something.
long t-shirt.
Yeah.
When I retire, I'll start needle pointing on pictures or something.
You know what I love about what you said though, is that sometimes we need to remind ourselves of that, right? When we're having those hard days, and we're having the 16th member call where you're like, oh my goodness. What do you mean? How do I log into the database? So I love that was a good reminder for me. Thank you.
Picture. Yeah. Thank you. And Kristi, for you, like, you've been around for a few years now and holding your seat, and you've had a few different capacities in the chamber roles, but where recently are you drawing inspiration from?
Honestly, it's all of you. I am one of those that I like to walk the talk. So all of our members, Mel just referred how somebody can't log in. They're just not engaged. They didn't read the email or something, and when you have those members that are engaged, you just want to double them up. You want to just give them a hug and say thank you. So myself, I try to be that member as well. I'm a part of CCEC. I'm a part of CEM. I'm part of the Canadian Chamber. I was asked to join one of their committees. So I try to walk the talk to my members, and that demonstrates. But for what inspires me, number one, it's my chamber peers, all of you. I follow so many chambers on Facebook and social. There's sometimes I see just how they did a selfie doing something going, oh my gosh, I could do that. Why didn't I do that? Or you see that they made a cup or a t-shirt, or you see the type of event they hosted. And the amount of screenshots I have on my phone for that, when I'm up at 2 a.m. for God knows what, I take a look back going, that's my inspiration. And I may not be able to implement it or anything right then, but it just gave me that, I can do that too. Why can't I? And I reach out across the network. The other thing is my members. I mean, Debbi nailed it. Listening to entrepreneurs, small, medium, large. We have one member right now. He's 18 years old, just graduated last June. His business, he has two. One, he started a Math Crack app to help students learn math. The other one is his AI in voice. He has business all over the world, and we're helping him because he now has to hire employees. And he's like, how do I get an employee manual? I'm like, oh, come here, I'll help you out. I have another serial entrepreneur who we've seen do, oh gosh, how many projects, right? Like they have so many businesses. Well, and they're all successful. They're making them money. He just landed this one organization and he's growing it huge. He has a $30 million contract in the Ukraine, and he's looking at building a mansion. And I'm just like, how, like,
unbelievable.
Like you just sit there and you can't help but be inspired, or just, and then they're thanking me for the connection I made to so-and-so. And you're just like, oh gosh, please, this had nothing to do with me. But you go home going, oh, like you can't help but be proud of them, but proud of yourself. And yeah, so my inspiration is all of you, like all the time. Yeah.
Thanks. Okay.
Well, you're welcome. No.
Yeah. Well, now
you owe me a drink in Halifax.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is very exciting and inspiring, and it's been amazing talking with both of you and sharing your insights on many different topics. And we barely scratched the surface on really anything. So we spent a lot of time on travel, which is huge and another source of revenue that a lot of chambers got to get their heads wrapped around and just dive into. But I'm gonna go. We'll start with Kristi first. I've been picking on Debbi first for the past little while, but Kristi, if you had someone completely new in front of you that is just starting to get started out in the chamber world, what kind of a little bit of nugget of information could you share with them to get them going?
Connect with your peers. It's the conversations I have, like I mean, I said it all previously, but when you actually take the time to get to know your peers or hear their ideas, I promise you, whatever you think is your challenge right now, somebody else in the network has absolutely faced it. They've dealt with it. They've succeeded in finding the solution. Or what you find is that there's 10 other people experiencing the same challenge at that point in time, and you have 10 others working on a solution with you together. Yeah. I think that's, the one piece of advice I have. The other is presenting your facts. When I started at my chamber, we had some toxicity on our board. I remember my board asking me within 3 months saying, please don't quit. Are you going to quit? And I'm like, not at all. Like I just see this as a challenge, and it's presenting the facts. Find out where you are incorporated. What does that mean? And then educate your board, educate your members, because when you are the educator, you build more trust with them,
Yeah.
support, engagement, and everything. And so, education is, be the educator, and honestly, the cheerleader. Be the cheerleader for everyone in your network. I think Stephen and I in Manitoba, we tend to be the most vocal on our social channels with the Manitoba group. There's a couple of others too, but people reach out to, I know Stephen, myself all the time, just because we're the ones who put ourselves out there. We make ourselves aware. And if a new person starts doing that, they will succeed too. I truly feel that.
Thanks. And Debbi, you've been around for those 45-ish years, and you don't know who's watching, but you've been an inspiration and a guiding light for so many, and you've you've had an influence on what the Chamber Network is for sure, where we are now. So Kristi and I coming in, and Melanie, we're pretty fresh into the game, more or less, and we wouldn't have these spots that we have without you and maybe some others, but you in particular for making the network the way it is. I'm not going to box you in. You've got a couple minutes. What do you got to share for the network on kind of what we talked about today, or anything that we didn't talk about?
I appreciate your very kind and generous words. That's very nice of you, and I certainly don't do this to get the accolades. I honestly can say I look forward to waking up in the morning so I can go to work. And a big part of that, I'm going to steal from Kristi, because that's what I did from very early on. I knew I didn't have all the answers, and I certainly didn't even know what questions to be asking, but that's exactly what I did. I reached out to my peers and participated, in my case, at the Ontario Chamber executive level. So I got to know people there, knew, who the movers and shakers in the Chamber network were, so I could reach out and ask a question. Same thing at the Canadian Chamber executive level. I developed relationships with chamber managers across the country, and, sat on the board or sat on a committee, or, these days you can participate electronically on the Facebook and all of those sorts of things. So that is invaluable, absolutely. And as Kristi said, there's somebody there that's in the same bed with you, and you can, cry together over something that you're struggling with and you don't know how to answer, or you can reach out to that one pearl in the network that you maybe know or knows of somebody that can help you with those things. So I certainly echo all of what Kristi said. The other thing that I think is so important is never stop learning, and be a resource for your chamber and your board. Know who the members on your city council are better than anybody else in your chamber does. Build a relationship with the mayor or with the CAO, or, if you're doing stuff on education with your school boards, whatever it is, and you become the champion for your chamber, and you become the knowledge holder, the expert for your chamber when your committees are meeting, when your board is meeting, when you have those one-on-one meetings with your MP or your MPP or, your mayor or councilor. What's going on. Reach out to your economic development office in your community and know what their strategic plan is, and, know where you fit into that. Your BIA, whatever organizations you're involved with or your chamber could be involved with, try and learn more than anybody else would know about those organizations and how you help them and they can help you. So I would certainly encourage all of that as well. And I think it's important to remember you're a leader, but you're also a follower. So you have to lead your organization. You're the head of your staff, so you have to lead your staff. But at the same time, it's your board and your chair of the board who gets the accolades, right? You don't take those accolades for yourself. You don't put your picture in the newsletter. It's your chair's picture. Give them the credit for what you may have done, but you have to give the credit to them. And never forget that if your face is the one that's in your newsletter every week or on your social media every week, somebody else may be looking at that thinking, I think I could do a better job than he can or than she can. And you always have to provide your volunteers with that recognition, because you wouldn't have a chamber if you didn't have those volunteers and you didn't have those members. So remember that. It's not about you, it's about them.
Wise words.
Very, very informative. Thanks, Debbie. Thanks, Kristi. Thanks, Melanie. I think we've just made the network so much more better with all of that info. Thank you. Appreciate that.
I was taking notes.
Yeah, notes heavy this round.
I did take a lot of notes.
Not with the rock stars that we have here. So really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time today on this, and good luck going forward. And I think everybody in the network catching this one are much better going forward with this. So thank you.
Well, good luck to all of you, because I only have about 2.5 months left. So
Debbie did not take notes. Debbie burned her notes.
I'll be watching from the sidelines, and I'll reach out to you in my retirement and say, hey, how you doing such and such? That was wonderful.
Thank you for everything, Debbie. I mean, when Mel and Steven reached out to me, I was like, I get to be on with Debbie. Like, I'm so honored. Like, she could have her own space by herself, but
I got to be with Kristi. Yay, how lucky can I be?
So
we sat on a recognition committee, and I learned a lot just from experiences, right? Like why a certain word was certain ways, or you just learn from every single thing you do. And you remember those things, and you remember the people because they're kind, know. Debbie, thank you for always being kind and handling my silly questions, or it was awesome. Thank you. I wish you all the best in your retirement too.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And thank you, Mel and Steven, too. You guys are rock stars as well. So keep up the great work.
We're doing our best.
There's the end right there.
Bye, all.
Bye.